Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Scale My Ecom Store podcast. I'm your host, Kath Langman, and today we're actually going to kick off a bit of a mini series of episodes about what I'm calling the Great E-commerce Realignment. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably seen and felt how different the online business and marketing world is. Even as a consumer, how different consumers are reacting to your marketing, and just not responding in the same way that they might have in years gone by. You might be watching the e-commerce world transform right in front of your very eyes and thinking, what the hell is happening? So that's exactly what we're going to start to unpack in this series. And today we're going to start with a really big topic, certainly something that I've spoken about on the show in recent times, and really everyone's talking about it and baking it into their business. I think many are getting it really wrong, though, and that is AI, artificial intelligence. When I say completely wrong, I mean, in the ways that e-commerce business owners and brand owners are baking this into their business. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, oh, great, not another AI podcast, I want you to stick with me because here's the thing. While everyone might be freaking out about robots taking over or getting quite distracted by ChatGPT, writing their EDMs and their Instagram captions, I believe that the real AI revolution in e-commerce is happening much more quietly behind the scenes, and it's already changing everything. Now, before we dive in, and given the topic of today's episode, I want to ask if you've checked out my new e-commerce diagnostic quiz yet. Now, if you've ever wished to have a business coach analyze your numbers, your results, your metrics, and tell you exactly what to do next, then this is it. So, what it is, it's a diagnostic quiz powered by AI to give your brand a smart, personalized strategy. You literally plug in your numbers and then get your next moves. It's built for founders who want smart, actionable advice on how to grow, and it's also free. So, if you want to take this quiz, all you need to do is head to productpreneurmarketing.com/quiz. And we will, of course, link to that in the show notes episode for this episode. So let's dive in. And I'm going to start with a bit of a reality check here. Because I am frequently asked, and I have been over the last 18 months, about how my team and I are using AI in our business and our marketing. So let's start with a little bit of real talk here, because when most people hear AI in e-commerce, they do think of tech tools such as chatbots, like those incredibly annoying pop-ups that ask, how can I help you today? When you've literally just landed on the website and haven't figured out what they sell yet. Or they think it's about using AI to write product descriptions and blogs and social media captions and EDMs, which, don't get me wrong, that can be incredibly helpful, but it's a little bit like using a Ferrari to deliver a pizza. Not only will these applications of AI not make a meaningful difference to your efficiency or your profitability, but also it's kind of missing the point entirely. The real AI revolution in e-commerce isn't about replacing humans or automating everything. It's about understanding your customers at a level that was literally impossible before. So let me give you a real example from a case study that I was just reading yesterday. And that is about a brand called Everyman Jack. It's a Californian brand. It makes all natural personal care products. That one is in men's hair, skin, and beards. But of course, I was interested in this case study because of our business, Indigari. And so their business, it's also, made from natural ingredients and all of this kind of stuff. So this brand was struggling with the same things that many brands face. How do you know when to reach out to your customers without being annoying? And so here's what they did using Klaviyo's AI. So instead of just doing things like tracking purchases, they let the AI analyze all the micro behaviors, browsing patterns, email engagement, purchase timing, even how long people spent looking at different products. The AI started predicting each customer's next order date with quite a degree of accuracy. So now they can send daily emails to customers for a couple of weeks on either side of their AI generated predicted next order date. And those emails are driving incredibly strong conversion rates. And the marketer in charge in that particular brand said, is quoted as saying, "I trust and value Klaviyo's AI because it saves me time, it helps me leverage our customer data and to personalize our email timing and strategies," which is pretty cool. And the results from that application of AI is a 12.4% lift in total Klaviyo revenue, which now comes from those predictive analytics campaigns, which is not small potatoes. That's a whole new revenue stream that they've unlocked by letting AI understand their customers better than they understood them before. And this is, to me, is incredibly exciting. It's something that we're now working to implement with our Indagare Natural Beauty brand. And we're taking this particular strategy and applying it to our skincare and hair care replenishment strategy. And, what we already know about our customers is that skincare routines are really personal, but they're also cyclical. Uh, and it really depends how different customers use the products, right? A serum that might last one person 6 weeks might last another person 4 months, depending on how they use it and their application method. It might also depend on their skin type or their hair type or their consistency of use. And so if you just use a set and forget traditional kind of replenishment campaign, or the out of the box template, you're really going to miss the mark. Or, at the very least, you're going to be leaving a whole lot of dollars on the table and probably annoying some of your subscribers and customers because they're receiving their campaigns at a less relevant point in time. So we're going to be using Klaviyo's AI to track individual usage patterns. And then when someone buys a cleanser or a face serum or a hair oil, we're not just setting that generic, 45 or 60-day replenishment reminder. We're tracking their engagement, their browsing behavior. The system's going to be looking at whether they're looking at complementary products or even seasonal variations in their purchase patterns. Obviously, when you're talking about using and analyzing this data, you do have to spend some time gathering that data in the first place so that you've got something to analyze. But it's incredibly powerful. And, I guess as an example, you might have one customer who runs out of her face oils faster in winter. I know that I'm like that because my skin gets a whole lot more dry and irritated. Somebody else might use their hair oil every 4 weeks, like clockwork. Others maybe every 3 months, depending again on their hair type. And so we really want to be able to serve those reminder flows and also, any relevant new products or how-to information or, there's going to be so much that we can share with them that is relevant to to them in their stage of use. So, like I said, we're really, really early days with this test, but I'm excited to see the results that comes from this. I will, of course, report back on the podcast down the track. And, anticipating, of course, that customers will be saying, "You literally read my mind. I was just thinking I needed to reorder that." So this really is the future. And, you don't want to think of this as like creepy surveillance, but genuinely helpful anticipation of your customers' needs. So what are some of the AI powers that you might not be using yet in your business? And we can talk about this in 3 ways. 3 ways I believe AI is revolutionizing e-commerce right now. And none of them involve robots, don't worry. The first one is the power of predictive personalization, which is essentially what I was just giving you the example of just before. So this isn't about showing someone red shoes because they looked at red shoes. That's fairly basic, right? What we're talking about is, the AI that understands intent before your customer even knows they have it. I've worked with a kids brand this year where we've implemented Klaviyo's predictive and analytics, if I can get that word out right, to understand different growth spurts. Parents don't just wake up one day and realize that their kid needs new clothes. There are some more subtle behavior patterns that might happen weeks before. So, they might start browsing sizes. Parents might be looking at growth charts, or they might spend a little bit more time viewing sizing guides. Klaviyo's AI can pick up these patterns and predict when parents are about to have my kid has outgrown everything moment. So instead of waiting for parents to frantically search, for size 6 school shoes, urgent delivery, or something like that, we can start reaching out with perfectly timed, personalized recommendations. And, this sort of effort can lift your conversion rates by 3 times compared to regular broadcast campaigns. And, which is that's an incredible result, right? Even if you can generate an incremental lift using that, it's not like you're burning many, many more human hours creating, 6 different versions of one email campaign to go out to manually segmented list, right? So, being able to increase the email open rates, the click rates, and of course the revenue per recipient is certainly something worth spending a little bit of time getting that tech underway and setting that up. The second one I think is pretty mind-blowing, and that is emotional intelligence. Because modern AI can actually start to detect some of the emotional states of your consumers or your customers or your prospects pretty much based on how people are interacting with your website. How long are they hovering over an add to cart button? Are they scrolling quickly or slowly through your product pages or images? Are they abandoning their cart and coming back within an hour versus 3 days later? I mean, if they abandon their cart and come back an hour later, it's because they did that on purpose and they were waiting for some kind of coupon code to arrive in their email inbox. You can start to tap into these sorts of insights. And that's something that I'm super excited with Indigare Natural Beauty in particular. As you can imagine, that is an incredibly competitive product category and is something that has a fairly high barrier to entry in terms of encouraging new customers to choose and purchase a new skincare product when shopping online versus in person, which is our scenario, of course. And also being a natural product and the sorts of customers that buy from us, they do, it's not only a high level of trust placing their skin in our hands, but also they are looking for natural and effective, and they are typically going to be doing their research and they're going to be concerned about, the ingredients as well as the efficacy and things like that. And so, you know, we really want to tailor our customer journey and serve our audience with the right relevant information when they need and want it. So, our environmentally conscious customers are going to take longer to make decisions compared to people who buy based on other factors, not because they don't want the product, but because they're doing things like researching ingredients, checking certifications, reading customer reviews, all of that sort of stuff. They're thoughtful and considerate with their buying decisions and not necessarily being hesitant. So instead of bombarding these customers with urgency tactics like only 3 left in stock, which turns this kind of customer off usually, we're able to then create nurture sequences that, celebrate this thoughtful approach. The third power of AI, which I think can be incredibly transformational for an e-commerce business in particular is dynamic optimization. And this is where AI gets really, really clever. So instead of just doing basic A/B tests to find out, which email subject line works better, or even, looking on your website, which product page version works better, AI can start to optimize in real time for the individual visitor. So it might be the same product page, but the AI might show social proof higher up to someone who seems a little bit more uncertainty driven. It might highlight sustainability credentials higher up for eco-conscious buyers, or it might emphasize convenience and speed and simplicity to the time-poor type customer. So this is not something that we've implemented yet with Indigare. We're starting to implement it with a couple of our other brands that we work with, but it's certainly something that I can't wait to do with Indigare. And, being able to use the deep Klaviyo and Shopify integration, it's now possible to dynamically create the ultimate customer experience for each individual, helping shoppers to, find even more to love with personalized recommendations, personalized coupons, wish lists, and so much more. Now, I reckon there's a big mistake that a lot of brands are making with AI. They think that AI is a magic wand. They expect to kind of plug it in and suddenly see their sales double overnight. And so, part of this era of thinking is the garbage in, garbage out analogy, because AI is only ever going to be as good as the data that you feed it. And that means if your customer data is messy, inconsistent, incomplete, or just incorrect, then your AI is going to make really terrible decisions. I've seen brands spend thousands on, AI tools that end up recommending completely irrelevant things. And this can happen easily if, segmenting on too generic parameters like age or gender or location, and, assuming that everyone in those segments wants the same things. Or if the brand's database segmentation is just a mess, recommending something totally irrelevant like beard oil to a teenage girl, for example. Either way, that's going to be off-putting to the customer, and it does risk more harm to the brand than good. And then also treating AI like a set and forget solution. I mean, honestly, treating anything in your business as a set and forget solution is not a good idea. But really, AI definitely needs human oversight. So, Aussies in my audience will recall the Australian government's robo-debt disaster algorithm that caused all kinds of grief before humans double-checked what on earth the tech was doing and destroyed lots of lives in the process. So you don't want your AI tech deciding, for example, that anyone who visits your returns page must be an unprofitable customer and consequently start showing them lower quality product recommendations. Your sales are liable to tank before anyone notices what's happening. And then I think another mistake that is probably a bit of a pitfall that's easy to fall into is ignoring the creepiness factor, because there's a fine line between, wow, they've really got me, and, ooh, this is a bit creepy. How do they know that? And I do think that some brands are crossing that line without realizing it. I heard an example of a brand just recently whose AI was so sophisticated it started predicting major life events, like when someone was probably pregnant based on their browsing patterns, but they hadn't necessarily either known it themselves or told anyone. And the marketing team thought that this was amazing and started sending baby-related content. And so the backlash in that scenario was pretty swift and brutal, deservingly so, in my opinion. But even something as innocuous as sending a text message to someone who was just browsing a particular product saying, "Hey, Kath, I saw you checked out this product just now. Is there anything I can help you with?" Like literally one of my team just received that sort of SMS, just that SMS a few weeks ago on a weekend as well. It wasn't even during business hours. So we of course had a chat about it as a team and all agreed that it felt a little bit creepy and probably wasn't inclined to encourage us to actually trust that brand with a purchase. So what does all of this mean for your brand, for my brand? Whether you're selling organic baby food or luxury handbags, whether you like it or not, AI is going to fundamentally change how you connect with your customers. And the brands that thrive will be the ones that work out how to use AI to become more human and not less human. And I want you to think about it. AI can handle all the data crunching, pattern recognition, and optimization so that you can focus on what humans do best, the creativity, the empathy, building genuine relationships. And for Shopify brands especially, I do think this is a game changer. The Klaviyo Shopify integration is so seamless that it is capable of tracking and analyzing everything. What products people view, how long they stay on each page, what they add to cart but don't buy, when they come back, what device they're using, and so many more things that, provide way more nuance to and context to all of it. And all of this data can feed into Klaviyo's AI to create incredibly detailed profiles and draw incredibly impactful insights. Another case study that I read about was about Culture Kings, which many of you listeners will know. It's an Australian streetwear brand. It's huge. It's got 8 million customers worldwide. They used Klaviyo AI to completely shift from batch and blast email campaigns to hyper-personalized communications. And apparently they saw an almost 400% year-over-year increase in global click rates and a massive decrease in unsubscribe rates, which is really awesome. And the crazy part was that they weren't just personalizing what they sent. They're personalizing when they send it, how often they send it, and even which channel they use for each individual customer. Is it email? Is it SMS? Whatever. But here's what you need to know. This isn't an optional thing any longer. While you might be debating whether to embrace AI or how far down that rabbit hole that you might go, you got to know that a lot of your competitors are already using it and they will be stealing your customers. So how do you get started without going crazy? You might be fairly well convinced by now that AI matters. And of course, in this episode, I haven't even dived into the way that generative AI search results is kind of, impacting our traffic and how we get traffic to our websites. I've touched on that on this show, and we will be diving into it more in other episodes. But, where do you start without breaking the bank and without losing your mind? And I think starting with your data foundation is pretty critical. So if you're on Shopify, make sure you get Klaviyo connected and set up properly, not just the basic setup and connections. I mean, really fully integrated with all of the tracking parameters turned on. You want to be capturing as much data as you can so that you can start to really analyze and understand purchase patterns, engagement, and all of the nuances and really tease out all of the insights as you can so that you can start to then personalize your communications. And I'd be suggesting, at least for businesses that have been going for some time, a little while already. So you've got some data, you've got customers buying from you. Focus on the predictive timing first. Obviously, if you're a new business, you can't focus on that first. You just have to focus on getting conversions first. But point is, don't try to be fancy with complex AI strategies. You want to start with something that is going to make a meaningful difference to you, right? And so for brands like Indigare, where you have a customer database, you have some historic data, you want to dive into Klaviyo's predicted next order date feature. and use this to time your email campaigns better and your flows better. Because this one, I mean, historically, traditionally, the post-purchase flows haven't been massive money generators, not compared to, say, Welcome Series or Cardaband and that sort of thing. But we know that your existing customers, if you can lift loyalty rates, lift repeat purchase rates, and increase, recency and frequency, you will become a more profitable business because the cost to bring existing customers back is so much less than it is to convert a new customer. So there's a lot of potential with starting there. Then using AI-powered insights for segmentation. So you can use Klaviyo's predicted lifetime value and other features like that to create smarter customer segments so that you are able to send different messages to high-value customers versus bargain hunters, for example. And, there's so many personalization capabilities here that it will probably blow your mind. Test AI-generated send times. So you can let Klaviyo's AI determine the optimal send time for each individual subscriber. So rather than just sending everything at, say, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday just because some blog post told you that was the best time to send, send it when your audience wants to receive it. And so to wrap up today, AI in e-commerce isn't about replacing human connection. It shouldn't be. It's about enabling deeper and more meaningful connections, but at scale. It's about really being able to understand your customers so well that you can serve them better than they even knew they wanted to be served. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about something that's going to make a few people uncomfortable, and that is why traditional advertising is dying faster than anyone wants to admit. And no, it's not because of the iOS updates or privacy changes that we've all had to live through over recent years. The shift is a lot deeper than that. So this has been episode 1 in my mini-series, The Great E-commerce Realignment. If you're loving it so far, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to chat about how these specific trends are affecting your business already, come find us at productpreneurmarketing.com. And, let's book in a strategy session. But until next time, remember, the future isn't happening to you, it's happening with you. The question is whether you are going to help write it or just watch from the sidelines. Looking forward to being back with you on the show again next week. Bye for now.